The beauty of Power Query is that when you add new records and refresh the query, they are processed seamlessly along with the existing data. However, if new columns are added to the source data, simply refreshing the query won't incorporate those columns. I am Nabil Murad, and in this tutorial, I'll show you how to set up a smart dynamic column selection in Power Query. Let's dive into the problem and explore the solution. Here is my start file. You can download the exercise file and follow along by clicking on the link below the video. In this worksheet, I have a table, and in column A, I have some managers, and then in columns B through G, I have the sales for these managers in 6 months. In preparation for analyzing my data, I'm going to send this table to Power Query. To do that, I click on the Data tab of the ribbon. I can use the shortcut Alt-APT. I click on From Table Range. The query editor opens, and here is my table. I want to add a column that calculates the total for the 6 months and another column to calculate the average. Then I select the 6 months by pressing Shift and click on June. And then I go to the Add Column tab. I click on the down arrow for statistics. I click on Sum, and here is the sum. I can rename the column Total. I select the 6 months one more time, and then still on the Add Column tab, I click on the down arrow for statistics, and I want the average this time, and here is the average. Wonderful. I just want to keep the manager, the total, and the average. I select the manager. I press Ctrl and click on Total, press Ctrl and click on Average, and then right-click, Remove Other Columns. I need to select the data type. I select the Manager column and I change the data type to Text. And then I select the two other columns, Total and Average, right-click, Change Type, and I want to set it to Currency. Now I can send my data back to Excel by going to the Home tab, Close and Load to. I'm going to load it in the existing worksheet to cell L1. I hit OK, and here is my query loaded into Excel. Just to match the style, I'll be selecting the same style like my table. Now I want to test my query. I have 19 rows loaded. What if I add more records? I do have some records, so I'm going just to cut them and put them at the bottom of the table. With the table auto expansion, they become part of the table. Now I can refresh my query. On the Data tab of the ribbon, I just click on Refresh, and automatically the new records are processed with the previously existing data. But the problem here, what if I add more columns? I'm going to unhide some columns, right-click Unhide, and I do have sales for July and August. What if I drag these two columns and add them to the table? When I release, they become part of the table. And now let's refresh the query and see the problem. Keep an eye on these numbers. After adding the two columns, refreshing the query by clicking on Refresh All, the numbers do not change. These two columns are not included in the query result. The reason for this, if I open the query, Alt F12, if you look at the inserted sum column and look at the M code, then the months are hard-coded. So when I add more months, they are not included in the calculation. So let's see how we solve this problem. I go back to Excel, and in another worksheet, I have some data coming from the World Health Organization. In this table, I have a country, and I have the number of cases for 6 different diseases for each country. I want to calculate the total and the average exactly as I did before, but this time I'm going to resolve the problem in few steps. I will take each row and convert it into a record. I will drop the country and then convert the number of cases into a list. Let's see how we do that. I'm going to send it to Power Query. On the Data tab, I click on From Table Range. I want to add a new column. Then I go to the Add Column tab, Custom Column. I can name it Cases. And what if I just type an underscore? An underscore, that simply returns a record. When I hit OK, then I get a record. And if I click to the right side of record, I see the full record. When I click on the right side of the next record, then I see the full record. I don't want the country name, so I'm going to remove it. And to do that, I'm going to edit the custom column that I created. I click on the gear icon to the right side to reopen the same dialog box. And then I wrap the underscore in a Record.RemoveFields. I open bracket. Following the underscore, I type a comma. And which field would you like to remove? I want to remove the country. I type it in double quotation. I close the bracket. And when I hit OK, I still get a record. But when I click to the right side of record, I can see the country field has been removed. Now I want to convert all these numbers into a list, and that requires editing the function one more time. I click on the gear icon and I wrap it in a function called Record.ToList. I click right after the equal sign and I type Record.ToList. I close the bracket at the end, and when I hit OK, then I get a list. Let's test. When I click to the right side of list, then here is the list of numbers. This list that is called cases, I can use it in performing any kind of aggregate function. And this is what I'm going to do next. So I want to add a column. On the Add Column tab, I click on Custom Column. Let's calculate a total. Then I'm going to name the column Total. And I use a list.sum. I open bracket. What would you like to sum? Then I use the cases field that I just created. I double click on cases. I close the bracket at the end and then I hit OK. And here I have a total. Let's create another one. Let's say an average. I click on Custom Column. I name this one Average. And I use a list.average function. I open bracket and I select the field that I created, cases. I close the bracket and then I hit OK, and here is the average. Now we want to get rid of the columns that we don't need. I select country. I want the total. I press Control. I click on total. I press Control and click on average. And then I right click, remove other columns. We need to change the data type. I hit Control A. And on the Transform tab, I click on Detect Data Type. That's a whole number and that's an average. For the average, I want to round it. Then on the Transform tab, I click on Rounding, I click on Round, and I want to keep 2 decimal places. I type 2, I hit OK, and that's wonderful. Let me send it back to Excel. On the Home tab, I click on Close and Load to. I will load my query to the same worksheet in cell M1, and then I hit OK. Now let's test adding more columns. I unhide some columns where I have more data. I have the number of cases for 3 more diseases. I select the 3 columns and then I cut them and add them to the table by dragging from the border, and when I release, they become part of the table. Now look at the difference this time. When I select my query and refresh, by going to the Data tab and click on Refresh, or by using the shortcut Ctrl-Alt-F5, then keep an eye on the numbers. The numbers change and the newly added column are now included in the result of my query. And we would have solved the problem. If you found value in this tutorial, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to my channel to be notified when new tutorials are released. The best is yet to come. Thanks for watching and see you next time.